Story 1. This is one of those rare instances where the landlord and tenant got along and were on the same side. 35 male had moved into a duplex in Atlanta with my then girlfriend and her son. Our neighbors at the start were so cool. We'll forever miss them. But they moved on and were replaced with Satan's estranged daughter. This was in 2014 to 2015 before the Karen phenomenon. But she was the textbook definition. Single woman, mid-50s, 2 big dogs, and way too many cats. At first, she kept to herself, so we did the polite thing when we passed each other, just smiled and waved. To go on from here, I need to illustrate the geography. Our duplex sat sideways on a low hill. Mine and my girlfriend's unit was on the high side of the hill, so Karen's side was on the low end. The housing units were at the same level, and we each had a separate garage. The garages were both side by side, both under her unit. There was no stairway access to the garages. The only way in was the garage door. There was a shared driveway that came in from the low side and right turned into the garages. As such, the sidewalk from the driveway went past her unit. It dead-ended at the center of the house where the 2 separate entrances were located. Our side had no sidewalk because there was no need for one. That's important later. About 2 to 3 weeks after she moved in, my girlfriend, her 7-year-old son, and I pulled our cars up into the yard to wash them. It was a nice hot summer day, and why not? Having a cute romantic moment with the water hose, bonding with her kid. We're off the sidewalk because we're not jerks. Eventually, she comes home, parks in the garage, and walks up. We stop washing, say hi, and even joke that we'd wash hers next. She declines, ignores us briefly, then stops and blows up. I don't recall exact quotes, but something to the effect of, "We are too loud at night, we don't have parties. We're on her sidewalk too much. It's hers because it's in front of her unit, not ours, so we need to stay off it. And we also need to stop using our garage because the automatic door opener rattles her unit, shakes things off shelves, and scares her pets." I was just going to ignore her and go back to washing cars. But she was pretty stern and loud in her complaints. My girlfriend had an attitude, and Karen just lit the fuse. Her son was getting scared of this lady yelling at us, so she leads with that. "Come and talk to us like adults. Don't yell and scare my child. This is a shared sidewalk, not yours. We pay for the amenities of a garage, so we're going to use it." Screaming, finger pointing, swearing, complete trailer trash behavior on both sides. I try to calm things down. "Karen, let's talk about this. We can reach a compromise." She's not having it, swears at us both, goes inside, and slams the door. My girlfriend is in tears. Her son is also crying and shaking. I escort them inside, calm them down. Then I decided I desperately needed to adjust the carburetors in both my motorcycles. Did I mention that I have motorcycles? Plural. Both of them. And they sit in the garage, under her unit. Both of them. And both of them are loud. And they both need the carburetors adjusted. Right now. I open the doors, pull both bikes out, and turn them around to face pipes into the garage. Starting with the little one, the classic 2001 1100 V-Star. Oldie but a goodie. I spend the next 30 minutes wrenching the throttle as I fine-tune the jets in the carburetors. Her dogs were going nuts. It was glorious. Once I'm satisfied she's tuned, I move over to the Vulcan Mean Streak. This one is an 1800, and she's straight pipes, no baffles. In between swapping out the motorcycles, I can hear her through the ceiling her floor. She's on the phone with the landlord screaming and crying that she is going to get out of her lease and there's nothing he can do about it. This sows the seeds for more misery for her later. I crank the even louder beast and fill the garage with smoke and noise for as long as my throttle hand could take. My girlfriend had calmed down by now and came to call me off. She said I'd done enough. I disagreed, but whatever. My ears were ringing anyway. Walking back up the sidewalk, we could still hear her on the phone. She spotted us through her window and flipped us off. We laughed. Update. A few days later, I'm on my way to work. I leave at about 6 to make it in time to have breakfast at the desk before I log on at 7. I go around to the garage, and Karen has left her car outside her garage and positioned it so I can't get my car out. I knock on her door, and of course, she doesn't answer. I bang on it a few more times. Nothing. I even yell at the door. "Hey Karen, you're blocking my car. I need to get to work." Her dogs are kind enough to respond, loudly, but not her. This is clearly her petty revenge for the motorcycles, I'm sure. Fortunately, it's a nice day, so I can just take one of them to work. The motorcycle can fit around her car. Thanks to her, I wasn't going to have time to enjoy my breakfast. That evening, I came home, and her car was still there. So instead of putting it back in the garage, I leave the motorcycle parked behind her car, just at the edge of the street. Now I know what you're thinking. But what if she backs into it? And I was kind of hoping that was where it would go. See, I've got great insurance and an even better lawyer. But no, this is how petty she is. She calls the cops. Come knock on our door, push the motorcycle over, go through the front yard. No, calls the cops. The nice policeman informs me that I'm blocking her car from exiting. Yeah, that was kind of the point. I inform him that she started it. Yeah, I know. I felt like a kid saying it, and honestly, we'd have called the police on her for this nonsense this morning, but it seemed juvenile. The cop's response: yes, but that's why we're here. That's just sad. Lets me know our species is doomed. However, once I explain the whole thing, Mr. Policeman knocks on her door, addresses himself, and gets her to come outside. We explain the whole mess. The cop asks, "Is this true?" She admits it, but can't produce a reason for it. The cop scolds us both to stop blocking the driveway. He says he doesn't want to have to come back out to our residence again. Yeah, okay. That weekend, we went over to the neighbors for a few drinks. No, not that one. She doesn't like us. The next duplex over. Their porch is about 30 feet or so from the original scene of the crime, the garages. We're not being loud, no music. Just a handful of us cooking out and drinking beers. Oh, and among the guests this evening is our landlord himself. Did I mention we were on good terms with him? So anyway, sure enough, the nice policeman comes by. It's not the same officer as the last time, but nonetheless. He comes to the deck, flashlight in hand. Says he got a noise complaint call. Clearly, it was her. But what is rib-bustingly hilarious is that the officer said the noise complaint was placed by, wait for it, the landlord of the house. The landlord steps forward and says, "Funny, I don't remember calling to complain about myself." Once again, we explain everything to the officer. He chuckles, asks us to keep it down, and leaves. After that, Mr. Landlord goes over to her unit. Of course, she doesn't answer the door, but he speaks anyway, letting her know what she did wasn't cool, and she better not do it ever again. After that, we tried to avoid one another. Minor stuff like a UPS package is dropped for her. We find it on our side and move it over. Later on, we'll hear through the door, "Keep your hands off my stuff," or other minor headaches that make us wish her dogs would turn on her. A few weeks later, I'd gotten a promotion at work, so we threw a party. Sure enough, the cops were called again. This one was not placed by the landlord, but he was still there. He yells over at her door, "Hey Karen, this is getting old." This next instance, I can't quite take credit for. But Karen had built this obnoxious awning to cover her side of the porch out back. She never uses the porch, so why bother? However, I clearly remember a stipulation in our lease that says we are not allowed to modify the exterior of the units at all. Maybe hers is different. Maybe I should call the landlord and find out. What's that? No, she doesn't get to make modifications either. Oh well, she did. So he makes her remove it. Again, because we're in good with him. He shares the tale with us. How she complained, then begged, then relented. It was ear candy. Speaking of candy, come Halloween, I decorated the yard. I had heard from multiple neighbors of ours that their children were frightened of my front yard come Halloween. By this point, I should have guessed, though, that the lines were being drawn with Karen, figuratively and literally. I had to move some of my decorations, and that included the 15-foot ghost on the roof of the unit. I had to move it all the way over onto my side. So come Halloween night, we took her son out trick-or-treating, and literally every kid we saw, we told them to go by her place. She had the good candy, and lots of it. But she's old and hard of hearing, so you'll have to bang the door pretty hard. No, she won't mind. Now, I realize this was also mean to the kids who went to her door. But worthy sacrifices on the altar of petty. Final season. It's been about 10 months now. The cops hadn't had to come back out, and no one had been cursed out in a while. One evening, we hear a splatter coming from the kitchen. We go in and find the pipe has busted under the sink and is spraying. I quickly go out to the main and close it. But because this is a duplex, I've cut off the water to her side as well. She's not home yet. So we call our buddy, the landlord. The landlord comes and addresses the issue. A small part to fix it. Needs to run to Home Depot. Be right back. Meanwhile, I type up a note for Karen's door. I let her know we had a leak, had to shut off the water, but it should be fixed within an hour or two. Even thanked her for her understanding. While he's gone, we clean up the water. It was a lot. Then, before he returns, we hear the splatter again. At first, I'm a little confused. I know I'd turned it off. But then it clicks. I go outside, and there's Karen holding a pipe wrench. Hey, didn't you see my note? Yes, but my pets need water. Yes, but now you're flooding our unit. I don't care, I need water. My girlfriend comes out and goes off shouting, calling her a witch. Next door neighbors hear and come out. It's a show now. I go get my wrench to close the main valve again, but she won't move out of the way. She's literally blocking me. I half expected her to take her wrench to my head. So I backed off. Sure enough, the landlord arrives at the show. Hey, we left her a note. She ignored it and started the water again. Wait, she what? Then he turns the light on her, cursing her out. I take advantage of her distraction to go kill the water again. But at this point, it's been running long enough that the carpets are soaked. Professionals have to be called out. Meanwhile, the landlord is still yelling at her. All right, Karen, that's it. You're out of here. But I've already signed next year's lease. Doesn't matter. Tear it up. And I'm taking your deposit to pay for their damages. But I don't have anywhere else to go. I couldn't help myself. I interjected. Hey, Karen, I could have sworn I heard you talking about getting out of this place a few months ago back when I was working on the motorcycles. She just blurted out, forget you, the default argument for anyone who has nothing else to say. Anyway, she continues to argue and cry about her deposit. She'll need that for her next apartment. She can't afford to move. She threatens small claims court to get it back. I put that one to bed real quick. Karen, I left a note on your door, and you chose to ignore it. Small claims won't give you anything. We spent the next couple of nights at a hotel while the carpets were redone. He put it all on insurance and just pocketed the deposit. Win-win. A few more weeks go by without so much as a peep from her. One day we come home, and she's just gone. Porch, garage, an apartment all cleaned out. Sometimes I wonder whose life she's annoying now. Story 2. People have been asking me for stories. So here is one from when I was younger. Okay, backstory. This happened in 1965. Just for some clarification. I was 26 then, 83 now. I had a pool party yesterday and thought about this run. So in my old neighborhood, my wife and I rented a home in a community of around 23 houses. Out of these 23 homes, we were 1 out of 7 with a pool because the previous owner ordered a pool when he had the house built. Adding a pool was around a $2,000 option. So many people didn't get it. Because I had a pool, a lot of people would try to come over to swim. Now, I was quite generous with my pool if people called first, but understandably, some weekends, I wanted some peace and quiet. A new family had moved into the house to the left of me, and they heard that I was generous with my pool. So the mom and her 3 kids just came over in swimsuits and asked to use my pool. I said that I was tired and that next weekend they could swim, just not right now. I told her that she and her kids could go to the community center. She and her kids could have gotten in for around 25 cents at that time. She said, "Oh, come on, I don't want to drive all that way, 3 miles. Plus, I don't want my babies in that water with all those people. I'm sorry, I just got off a 60-hour week and I don't want to have people over. Sorry." Due to her unpleasant attitude, I didn't want her in my home, so I was very dismissive of her using my pool. Come on, my babies are hot and need to cool off. Just let us swim for an hour and we'll leave. I don't want them in that nasty pool. Just be a good neighbor. No, I'm sorry. She then whispers something to her kids, and then they proceed to beg to use my pool. I just close the door on her. A few hours later, I hear my dog barking and people screaming. I looked out the window, and the mom and her kids had hopped my fence to gain access to my pool, and they were being cornered by my dog, Cupcake. Cupcake was a big Pitbull, but she was a sweetie, always defending me and my property. I took the family out of my yard and told them that if they came on my property again, I would call the police. She also tried to gain access to the other neighbors' pools and was promptly banned from there as well. Update. Last I heard, that stunt she was trying to pull eventually got her arrested for trespassing on one of our neighbors' property. Story 3. So when I was in the music business, I had a nice one-bedroom apartment overlooking the pool and the clubhouse. My job at the time was to fly around the country and throw parties in clubs every weekend. It was exhausting, but loads of fun. I got a rare weekend off, and I was looking forward to getting some rest, recharging, and heading out every week for the next 2 months. Now, I chose this community because it was very quiet, the residents were polite, and it was never noisy. Until one fine night. Now I'm pretty okay with people being a bit loud until around 11 o'clock on the weekends. But come on, folks, have some manners. I had gone to an event that night, but left early so I could get home by 9-ish, get a shower, and get some sleep. I noticed there was a loud party in the clubhouse when I got home. No problem, I figured. I'm used to loud music, but it was so loud I could hear it in the shower. No problem, I thought. Surely, they'll shut it down by 11 o'clock. 11 o'clock comes and goes, and they're still banging away like a frat party. And I really don't want the hassle and the weight of calling the cops. So I put on my jeans, boots, and shirt, go down, and hit the keg. It wasn't long before someone walked up and said, "Who are you?" I said, "I'm the guy in that apartment right up there that you're keeping awake with all this loud music and noise at 11:30 at night. So as long as you keep doing that, I'll be drinking your beer." The music got turned down, and I got a good night's sleep. And yeah, that was easier than I thought. But hey, lucky me.